Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of UJ Sport on UJTV. My name is Collen and I'm your host for the show that speaks sports all the time. Today we have in studio basketball head coach Mandla Ngema, assistant coach Thuso Muilwa, and manager Elise Leroux. Of course, we'll speak to the players later. We want to talk all things basketball. UJ has introduced basketball as a club in one of the 10 clubs that they have here. And we'll talk more about the things that they have to do to make sure that they win competitions, the competitions that they've competed in on the African continent, as well as some of the players that they bring to the club here at the University of Johannesburg. Coach Mandla, welcome to the show. Good to see you here. The last time I saw you was in the office because you and I work in the same building. And it's good to see you here again. I've got fairly good things to remember about you. You know, since I started joining UJ in 2021, I've known you to be a winner. I've never actually seen you losing like serious games. You've won a couple of competitions. And that got me thinking, do you ever lose any matches or any big tournaments?
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, it's part of sport. When you step on a playing field, you're bound to win or lose. It's a 50-50 thing. It's our execution. Yeah, we did lose. It's still heartbreaking that we lost in the final last year in the men's section. But the women competed very well and got a bronze medal, performed wondrously. So yeah, you do lose games, but it's part of the game.
I must say, I feel so short today because these guys here are the tallest that you can find in the university. As you would know, basketball players are some of the very tallest people in any sport in the world. Coach, tell me something. I know I've seen one short guy who plays for UJ basketball, the senior men's team.
Yeah.
Majority of your players are tall people. What is the perfect height for a basketball player?
If you're above 1.8,
1.8
it's
meters.
advantageous. But there's a saying in basketball, if you're good enough, you're tall enough. So it really, height doesn't matter because one of the most dominant players in world basketball is pretty short by basketball standard, Steph Curry. But it's dominant because it's so good.
Coach Thuso, welcome to the show, sir. I think you are probably the tallest guy in the basketball setup here at UJ.
Not really, but yeah.
During your time, were there ever any other taller players in your team or some of the teams that you played against? I mean, I've seen the tallest guys when we were in Kenya, in Nairobi in 2021 for the fourth Afro-Varsity Basketball Challenge.
Yeah.
Some of the tallest players there came from Senegal, I think. Was it Uganda or Senegal?
It was Uganda. That was Uganda Christian University.
Yeah.
That are actually the defending champions of FASU.
The ones that wear the blue gear, né?
Yeah.
Blue and white. So coach, have you had any challenges when it comes to age? What is the what advantage do you have as a taller basketball player on court?
Look, it's a lot of things. The main thing would be rebounding and scoring. Because once you have the ball above your head, nobody can actually get to it. So if you are shorter, you get the ball above your head. If you are taller, you just take it. And that's a very huge advantage. Getting back to your main question as well, in terms of was I the tallest player when I was playing? No, not even close. I actually realized that as soon as I made the national team, I came from a team where I was the tallest player. As soon as I walked into the national team, a guy came through the door. All I could see was his chest. I only saw his head after he went
so
in.
When he goes,
he was like 2 meters 18 or 17. Coach knows him, so we were both in the national team. So literally, I was up below his shoulder. So also that the next tallest guy I saw was a Russian player. I actually have a picture with him. I'll send you the picture. I was like literally by his waist.
Yeah.
He was about 2 meters 20 and he was 18 at the time. So
and-
there are tall players in our country as well.
Yeah, and you would think that, well, what comes to my mind is if you're a short basketball player, that means then you can maneuver quite quickly and
That's what
fast
they
because
do.
taller people don't have, fast reflexes.
And you outrun them.
Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, are you asking me or him? Okay, I'll answer that one.
Anyone, yeah.
Look, I'll give you a perfect example. In 2003, we were in Egypt with the national team. And then we played Senegal. Senegal was in our group. They had the tallest team in the tournament. They actually have two players that are currently in the NBA, over 216 meters. We beat them that year. Nobody could believe that we beat Senegal because we were nobodies at the time. We actually went front page the next day in Egypt. But it's because we outran them. We actually realized that every time we crossed the half, the two tall players were still struggling to come. So we just called the time out and said, okay, sharp. If we can't beat these guys because they are taller than us, let's run them. By the time they woke up, we were up 20 points. So it gave us an advantage being shorter.
Just to introduce the manager, Elise Leroux. You manage the taller guys here.
I try to, yes.
And well, your role as a manager for the basketball club, can you tell us what does it entail?
Well, obviously, it's a holistic approach to sitting with these two gentlemen next to me to come up with a plan of action that we try and implement and execute. It's not just about the coaching and implementation of player management, but it's the logistics, administration, planning, organizing, budgeting, everything else related to that. And when you put that all together, hopefully we have successful teams going to tournaments to be successful.
Your job is not really simple. Somebody might think it's a fancy job. You get to interact with players and managers and travel the world, but you actually do a lot of things. I actually realized when you were preparing for a couple of competitions that we participated in 2021 and 2022, when we went to Kenya, for instance, and I want to talk about the incident at the airport there later on. You have to make sure that every player's documents are in order for them to travel and for them to play. What are some of the things that are critical or some of the important things that you need to make sure that they're always there when you travel?
Well, obviously, when you play or travel internationally, you got to look at which country you're going to, what the international traveling standards are, what the health aspects are. Especially when we traveled in 2021, it was just post-COVID of all the stages and phases that we were going through. And to travel for international university events, you still need to have study documentation in order to travel. So valid study visa, passport, medical aid. Then obviously you have to study the right credited course. You need to make sure that everybody's entered into the right tournament at the right age. So it's a lot of follow-up work. And if one aspect is out, then you sit with a problem. And if you get it wrong, then you have somebody sitting at Rwanda's airport.
So I can understand it's a lot of work. I've seen it firsthand when we were in Nairobi there, especially because it was just after COVID.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were required to do PCR tests. It's PCR, ne?
Yeah. So,
and then you have to make sure that every single individual that travels with the team has to do the tests before they go into that country, when they are in that country, coming back to South Africa.
yeah. And it was even for our local tournaments, we had to do it. So, I mean, before USAS, when we did the testing, we had to leave one of our ladies and one of our male players out of the selected team to go to USAS and PE because they tested positive for COVID. So then you had to look at the health aspect of the entire group, plus the individual. You got to make sure that person is looked after, wellness is there, you know, the mental state is all right, that they have somebody to speak to, that they fed, they isolated but not alone. And then you had your entire group needing to travel, losing 2 players that were sort of key in the whole setup. And now you got to rearrange your whole strategy, your playing formats against everybody that you're going to tournament against on a local and our international one. We weren't restricted with our players' health, but you had to player manage the injuries. I think going into USA last year, we carried 5 niggles and injuries. And at the final of the men, it turned into 3 quite serious injuries that then couldn't go on to the 3x3 tournament. So then you had to completely reselect your whole team for 3x3 USAs.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of work. And I think for somebody that's a manager, you actually enjoy a lot of stress.
Do we enjoy stress?
No, enjoy.
Oh, endure.
Enjoy.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I heard the joy.
Yeah, you enjoy a lot of stress because then you have to deal with the paperwork. When you are there, you are worried about. I remember there were also names not being correct on the results that came back from the labs that
Yes,
side,
yeah.
and you can't have names that are incorrect. It's going to be an issue when you get onto the field, onto the plane to travel back to South Africa.
And genders and things like that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to find out from you, during COVID time and now after COVID, do you think the work is a lot easier now compared to then? Or is it still the same thing? Is it always like there's new challenges?
It's always,
coming into
there's always new challenges. It's always evolving and changing, so you have to adapt. I think nationally our sports is in a different situation compared before COVID, but it's not a bad or a good thing at this stage. It's trying to balance it out. But no, it's. I think it's somewhat even more challenging after COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the budget. I'm more interested in the numbers. How much
Please
budget
don't.
do you need per annum, to run a club like that? But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Coach Mandla and Coach Thuso, basketball is such a popular sport in certain countries in Africa. West African countries are known to be the ones that love basketball or participate in basketball a lot more than South Africa. And of course, we know America is the home of basketball, and some European countries and Asian countries as well. Why is it not too popular in South Africa? What do you think is the case?
As Elise just elaborated on the administrative side, it's quite a challenging job. And most of basketball people are not prepared to do that heavy lifting. So what makes it easy for us at UJ to compete and for the coaches to focus and the athletes as well to focus on actually winning the games is because the administrative part is sorted out. So I don't care how good you are as a coach. If you don't have a great and a committed and dedicated administrator, your job is in vain. So that's where we're sitting. Right now we don't have a lot of dedicated administrators who want to put it out there and put their neck on the line and say, okay, I'm going to risk being unpopular. But if it's for moving the game forward and advancing the game, so be it. Right now, we're struggling with having those type of people. And not that basketball doesn't have qualified people, it's just that it's volunteerism. So people aren't willing to do that. So that's what's mainly holding basketball back. Yeah.
Coach Thuso, do you think is that the case? Do you see the same way as well?
Look, it's literally the same way, really, because our problem is not the players. It is not that we are losing. It is that we are not running sustainable leagues. There hasn't been a sustainable league in such a long time, just a local league. I mean, we know every weekend there's soccer buses going to all the grounds around the country playing everywhere, every week, December to January. Basketball, it rarely happens. There'll be a league for 2 months, a league for 1 month. So sustainability, it's exactly what is the problem. And it comes back from the people running the sport because it starts there.
So what do you think should be done then to make sure that we professionalize the sport? I'm sure like netball, basketball is is not really highly professionalized in South Africa. If you are aware, last year, Netball South Africa only started giving some players professional contracts to try and professionalize the sport of netball. And we haven't seen that with basketball. And I think if maybe they would follow in the same way as Netball South Africa did, maybe that could, elevate the sport. What do you think?
Look, netball and basketball both got the same contract at the same time to start these leagues. Netball has better as administrators that want to see it get better. Like we were saying, it's still the same thing. We're both on the same level. We started at the same time. The players were all they call it a semi-pro league. We've been semi-pro, all of us, for the same time, period, really. So the difference is the administrative part. Netball had people that were making sure that the administration is sorted. We didn't. So now we are at a position where they are looking far much better than us, but we are literally the same product of government because we are both sponsored by government.
Yeah. So with other sports, you have growth from, the grassroots.
Yeah.
The sport starts in schools or primary schools, and then the kids grow playing football, for instance, or playing cricket or rugby, right? And then they get into high school as well, and then maybe they go to schools of excellence, those schools that are earmarked for producing athletes. And then they go into development setups for professional teams, right? And then they become younger professional or junior professionals that play in development teams that can, when they groom them to be ready for the senior teams.
True.
With basketball, does it work the same as well? Where does development for basketball start? And how do you make sure that a player grows from that primary school kid into high school or school of excellence, and then a junior team, and then a professional player at a later stage?
Can I start that one before you answer?
Yeah, sure.
Because luckily, I'm lucky enough to work in all of them. Primary, high school, tertiary, and professional setup.
Yeah.
So the issue with these four is detachment. Primary school setup is detached from high school. High school is detached from tertiary. Tertiary is working alone from the professional league. So you've got a development at primary that nobody knows how it's happening. And then you end up getting those players at high school and you're wondering, but you said you were playing basketball, why are you not developed? And then I continue to use what he has if I can't develop. And then they get to tertiary, then we are wondering, what is this? Why are we getting a player that we could have developed ourselves from last year? And that player could have been better than this player we want to give a bursary. So detachment is a big issue. No one speaks to the other person.
Yeah.
Coach Mandla?
Yeah, no. It's exactly that. Everybody's working in silos. It appears as though there's no cohesiveness as to we're all working towards the same goal. It's basketball season in high school, for instance, is not conducive to producing excellent players for tertiary institutions, because it happens, maybe it's about, a month and a half?
6
the
weeks.
First,
No, it's 6 weeks.
yeah, it's a
You play
month and a
6
half,
weeks and that's
exactly.
it. For the whole year.
In high school?
High school.
Yes, for the first term and then in the last term. So there's a huge gap that the players are not even physiologically ready to play at this level. So when we got them here, we practice 3 times a week. We play a lot of games, so players break down physically. So we have to slow them down because they're not physically ready to play at that intensity. And that's what affects the national team product as well. The national teams, who are you going to get? And It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge, but I think it can be overcome. But it's gonna again take us back to the administrative part, because we as coaches we're gonna work, but if you're not being, our work is not organized to achieve a particular goal, we are doomed.
So the Americans have, as we were chatting, you and I, Coach, before, the Americans have the NCAA, which feeds into the NBA.
Yeah.
So the NCAA is where all the major schools, I think they've got over 1,000 schools nationwide.
And 3 divisions.
Yeah, and then they take those better developed players from there, and then they feed them into the professional teams, which is about 30 teams, right, in the NBA. And then here in South Africa, we obviously have USA, which is, I think, is equivalent to the NCAA. And does USA produce or manage talent the same way as the NCAA to feed into, I would say, maybe the African
National structure.
Yeah, you know, the basketball African league, what we call BAL here in Africa. Yeah. Do we have a structure like that?
It's not enough, because right now we're at USA level, we're just focusing on the
championships.
Yes, a 1 week championship.
Where break it down for the viewers maybe who are listening right now. Maybe they might not know which, when we're taking USA, what are we talking? It's University Sports South Africa.
Yes.
And that is a federation that governs sport for universities in South Africa, be it basketball, hockey, football, etc. Yes. And so maybe just break it down for us there. What should USA be doing to make sure that they look after athletes and develop them for maybe professional teams and professional leagues?
Okay. Let's compare how NCAA in the US is working. All of those institutions that end up playing in the March Madness, which is like the USA Winter Games that we are going to now in July, all of those institutions are playing in fully fledged leagues or association or conferences in the US. So that by the time the March, which is a June in this country, come about, all of these teams have played a number of games in preparation for or qualifiers for the national championship. But in this country, most of the provinces don't have leagues. Gauteng used to have Gauteng University basketball, and it has a GUBL, which is the Gauteng University Basketball League. But currently it hasn't been operational because struggling to get...
Which UJ has won last year, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. We're struggling to get the rights from USA, which is a mother body, to give us the right to open an account, so we can then manage our finances and organize events. So as a result, all the universities need to play on different leagues, which those leagues, some of them, they help us, like the ICSL. They help us because ICSL was created in order to augment the GUBL, so that all of the universities in Gauteng can play against senior teams, senior club teams, which is provide tougher competition, so that we are ready to go compete at the national championships. But with now Gauteng University Basketball League hasn't been fully operational. Last year we ran a 2 week, was it 2 weekends?
2 weekends.
2 weekends, just a cup. It's not a league, because where are we going to hold the fans? You see? So we now have to go back to relying on the provincial structures, which we moved away from in 2010, because usually the provincial structures will organize games and the playoffs, the crucial part of the league, during our exams. And we know we are an education first organization or institutions. So at a time, we taper down on practice sessions so our players can focus fully on their academics. And that's the time we're supposed to play crucial games. So as a result, no university team has ever won Metro Basketball League or Gauteng Basketball League. Because at the time the crucial games are happening, we are deep into examinations. So that's the reason that universities, and for a long time we kept basketball alive in this country. It's an institution that kept it going. But we don't see as the institutions as important or playing a big role in the South African basketball landscape. So if the mindset doesn't change, unfortunately, the result of the national team and basketball as a whole is not going to move forward.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I think that's also where Coach is also talking about when you're now speaking about the management of sport and administration. There's small steps and progress in that sense. Like GUBL is coming back to try and become a league, so it's more consistent over a period of time. It's like Coach Tuso said, there's a detachment between the sections. You can see that the BSA is trying to make small steps to try and unite everybody in all the provinces, and you can see the small provinces are also trying to step up. I think Mpumalanga just started their league. So however small it is, they've now started the league. So I think it becomes about the consistency of it. So things that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago that worked, the basic things that worked, that you didn't need to change to re-implement. Small elements of that post-COVID is coming back now. So I think that there could be a small turnaround period, but it's going to take us a little longer to get there, I think, in certain of the sporting codes like basketball will take now.
So in South Africa, we've got the Basketball National League, the BNL. How does it compare to the Basketball Africa League as well as the Basketball National Basketball Association?
That's yours.
The BAL and the NBA. So how do you compare our national league here to Coach Tuso?
Look at it this way. Each country in Africa has a league. They are semi-pro or professional league that they run. So BAL is literally all the winners of all those leagues coming together to get an African champion. So it's literally the African championships replaced. Before we used to take all the winners, they all go meet in one country. We get one African winner. And because of not just South African management of basketball, even the African countries do not manage basketball properly. Those championships suddenly stopped. They never came back again. The last time they happened, I think, the last time we were part of it as South Africa was in 2002, I think. That was the last time they happened. They never happened again. So now clubs that win in their countries never had anything to do. So the NBA came in and said, look, guys, we see you guys have leagues, but now let's take this to another level. So they then created the BAL, of which they looked around and said, no, these countries, about 4 countries, they realized that no, these 4 countries are very serious about basketball, and their level is very high.
Which countries are those?
It's
played in Rwanda,
It was Egypt, Tunisia. Who else? Egypt, Tunisia, Senegal, and somebody else. And Angola.
Yeah. South Africa is not in there.
South Africa is not in there. So those 4 teams, they've decided that they will automatically go into the BAL qualifiers after winning their leagues. Then the rest of the countries go into pools of qualifiers because they only won 16. So those 4 are automatically in the last 16.
One from each
country. No, the winners of those leagues are automatically in the last 16 of the BAL.
Okay.
Then the rest of the countries, they fight for the remaining 12 spots.
Yeah.
So you go to qualifiers. That's why we had qualifiers at our university for Tigers to go through the zone 6. From zone 6, they go to the next zone until they end up with 16 teams in Africa. Then the BAL starts. That's when it starts, the BAL.
Just
only with the 16 teams.
Out of interest, have we had any player that was so good in South Africa that person went on to play in the NBA? Any of the teams there? The Lakers?
No, not someone who... Look, we've had South Africans in the league in the NBA, but they did not play as South Africans. It's not those dual citizenships. Once you leave the country, you weigh your options. You say, I'm going this side. So they ended
go
up
where
like
the
Steve
money
Nash
is.
from Steve Nash is from Maritzburg.
Yeah.
Peter Maritzburg, Thabo is from Mamelodi. We played with him in Mamelodi, but he was visiting.
Yeah.
Because he grew up with the father in Norway, somewhere in England. What's the country? He's from
Scandinavian.
he's from that side. But he's South African. He comes to sit with us, and then you see him playing in the NBA. But he was not groomed by us basketball-wise.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So we don't have a lot of African. Like in Africa, if you are not 2 meters 17, it's going to be hard for you to get into the NBA because our skill level is way below the American level. It's like taking a South African player, putting him in the Brazilian soccer league and telling him he must make it. You know he won't make it. That's the difference.
Yeah, there could be people who
there
can
will
make
be.
it there.
It's a few,
but
yes.
very
But
few
you get my point. No, I mean the one who grew up here.
No, I get it.
Trick.
I get it.
So it's
Totally.
the same difference in style.
Yeah.
We currently do have fantastic players all over the world who are playing the trade. Some guy came back, was from DHS, left from DHS and went to the US and played in the collegiate level, came back, performed very well for Cape Town Tigers at Basketball Africa League recently. So we do, talent is talent is talent is talent.
Yeah.
Period.
It doesn't matter where you
I
come
don't
from.
care where you come from.
It's how you nurture.
It's how you nurture the talent and how you expose the talent.
Yes.
We don't seem to do that very well.
I wanna take you on that one. I think you're making a very interesting point. With your UJ basketball teams, both the men and the women,
Yeah.
we've got a mix of both locals, which is South African players, and international students who play for the basketball teams. Some of them are from Zimbabwe, DRC. Do we have
Uganda.
Nigeria? We've got Cameroon as well. Yeah. So it's a mix.
all
It's a
over the
very
place.
interesting mix of players that are actually very, very good. Now, that brings me to the question. When you do your recruitment, do you look at South Africans in a different way and say, okay, because maybe basketball is not such a big sport in South Africa, therefore let's look at those ones that are good at basketball from outside South Africa? How do you recruit students for the teams?
We don't go specifically on where a player comes from because most of the players that are South Africans or non-South Africans, we didn't recruit them from outside of the country with the exception of maybe Davison Chivero. But everybody else was players that were already groomed here in South Africa, okay? Which then goes to say again, is how dedicated you are to your craft, how hardworking you are. That's what's gonna elevate you. And the case seems to be the non-South African players work harder at trying to be the best at the basketball game. Maybe it's family support or whatever structure it is that's happening. But we don't go out of our way to go recruit foreign players. Some of them are here on refugee status, which in basketball terms, they belong to South Africa. Zed Mutongwaza, for instance, Zimbabwe didn't do much to groom him. South Africa groomed him. And as a result, he would have loved to represent South Africa, but South African basketball see him as a foreigner.
And
So-
why is the case?
He's not really a foreigner when you look
He's
at
got
it.
an ID.
We groomed him. We should be taking pride.
I'm
in
asking this particularly because I know some of these boys grew up in South Africa for the very long. They went to high school here.
Yeah, everything.
Some of them even from primary school.
Yeah.
Example,
Up until-
Adrian went to Banato from primary school till he finished matric.
Yeah.
He's still a foreigner.
And he studies
studies at
tertiary,
UJ
his university studies here in South Africa. It's quite interesting to think about it. And I'm just thinking, for people that are watching this, wherever you are, and we're talking basketball at the University of Johannesburg, if you've never seen these players play, I encourage you to go and join them. There's, of course, you can come and watch them at the 5th Afro Varsity Basketball Challenge, the 3-on-3. It's going to be played at the Soweto Campus between the 22nd and the 25th of June this year. Come through and watch these boys play. I speak to these guys. I invited them here because I know the caliber of players they have in their squads, both the men and the women. And I promise you, what we're talking about here is not small fish. It's not small play. These guys are very talented. And if you see them play there, if you listen to the coaches, when they scream at them to push them harder, I saw you doing that in Kenya during the 3-on-3 there in November 2021. Yeah. I also saw you during the USAs last year in November, December, when we played at Vets and here in Brixton. Yeah. These players are very talented, man. Very, very talented. And the amount of work that they put, they leave their sweat and their souls on court. And for me, I think I've never seen such dedicated people ever.
It was.
What does it take? What do you do to them for them to play that way, that harder?
We're a family. We're going to fight. We're going to scrape behind closed doors. We fight a whole lot. Okay, but the key is, I hope everybody understand that it comes from a loving place, because I see a great talent in them. They're hardworking, you know. And what the men last year achieved at the FASU in Kenya, it's heartwarming. It's absolutely also mind-boggling that they became the first team from this country to ever be crowned the African championship in basketball, ever. Yeah. But nobody knows or take cognizance of that in South Africa.
What do you have to say, Susanna?
Listen, working in the sports industry, it's never an easy task. And you can ask me the same question over and over, and I think every time you ask it, you're going to get a different answer. I have a passion for sport. I played it myself, now I manage and administer it. But when those players step on the pitch and they become the best versions of themselves, that's why we do what we do. Through all the challenges, through all the blood, sweat and tears, the frustration, the coffees, the late nights, the early mornings, the having to travel to pick up in Soweto Campus, to bringing them here, to an indoor court falling apart, trying to get them a new indoor court, to you can't train outdoor in winter, to getting the right equipment, to fitting them in it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. But when they make that small achievement, when I one day can do a reverse little layup and finish it, you've done your job. Yeah. You've done your job.
I think it's very satisfying what you guys are doing. For people that don't watch basketball, or they have never watched the UJ basketball teams play, maybe they have no idea what we're talking about. Yeah. You know, I can see you getting emotional when you speak about it.
Yeah, but remember, I only took over basketball 2 years ago. Yeah. And obviously, this is my 13th year with UJ permanent. And before that, I studied. So I knew of UJ basketball, but not this in-depth.
You have never been too close like you are now.
But because you face your own challenges in your other environments that you are in, but when you come to the new environment and the challenges are still the same. You're still trying to feed your kids. You're still trying to get them to places on time. You're still trying to have them be, committed student athletes. A high-performance sporting code can have money, but it's still not enough money in comparison to a competitive or social recreational one. It's the same challenges, it just varies in intensity.
How much? You thought I forgot, eh?
I'm going to say, let's play the lotto.
How much money do you need to run a basketball club here at the university?
Collen, can I be selfish and say like 100 million? No, I'm kidding.
Realistically?
No, realistically, looking at it, you're probably looking at the sport being about a 3.5 million rand operational budget.
Annually.
Annually, yeah. And I say operational 3.5 because that will include your scholarships, your probably food subsidy, your travels, your entries and affiliation, your maintenance, purchasing of equipment and clothing. It'll be your staff complement. It'll be obviously depth and growth. With Coach Tuso doing under 16, under 19 development. Those are the kids you're trying to sift through the system. So it's to bring that in, having a good coaching program so that your skills develop. I would roughly say about 3.5. Yeah.
Coach, you feel the same? Is that good? Is it good enough?
But we say that, but then
because
when you start,
he's the one that does the work.
You say that when you start the program, it ends up not being enough. You know.
Thank you for that, Elise. Coach, I think the conversation here, there's a lot. I realize now that there's a lot of things that we can talk about. But because I just wanted to cover a lot of things in a short period of time, I don't want to leave this conversation having not spoken about the type of competitions that you participate in, if you can list those for us, as well as the ones that you have won. You have won the Gauteng University Basketball League last year. It was both the men and the women.
No, it was only the men.
The men. And then last year you won the FASU games in Kenya, the 5-on-5. Yeah. And then you came...
the Inner City Super League as well.
And then you came second with the men in the USA at Vets, and then the ladies won that competition, the 3-on-3.
Third at the 5-on-5, and then the women won the 3x3.
And the men
silver. And the men came second.
Okay. And then in a year, how many competitions do you participate in, including leagues and cup competitions?
With the men, it's ICSL, and we participate in a tournament, the Ashraf Lodeberg Memorial Tournament that is hosted by Wits University, and then if GBL does host something, then we participate in that. And then we'll play the USAs. And the women will then have the same tournament plus the women's tournament in August, in the Women's Month. Yeah.
So who qualifies to play for the FASUs? That's the African Continental Tournament.
Currently, it's not really qualifiers. It's by invitation. It's an invitational tournament. So fortunately, our director has been, since she got here in 2015, we've been participating almost every year. So that helped the players to look forward to something different and rubbing shoulders with their
other than playing just locally in South Africa.
Yes,
and then the winners of the FASU games get to play in the World Student Games.
Yeah, the 3x3 version.
That's now the highest global level.
Yes.
How many teams go there? Is it just the winner or the runners-up?
It's a winner and runners-up. We managed to go to China in 2016 as champions of 3x3 FASUs. So we'll hope this year again we'll scrape, and maybe our women as well will scrape, so that both teams end up there this year.
I wanted to go to some of the things that I have seen online. We had this discussion before we started recording. Let's speak about, before I come to this, I want to talk about the upcoming FASU, the 5th FASU Varsity 3-on-3 Basketball Challenge, which is going to be held here at UJ. There's a number of universities, over 10 of them, if not 12. In South Africa, we've got UJ. I'm not sure if Stellenbosch is coming through. I think Stellenbosch is coming through. Vaal University of Technology is in there. Northwest Vaal Campus is in there. Is TUT in there?
Soul plug.
Sol Plaatje is in there from Mpumalanga, right? Then we've got a university in Botswana.
Mauritius.
And then we've got Mauritius,
Ghana.
Uganda, Ghana, Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, University of Ibadan is in there.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to in this competition? I know it's going to be a melting pot of African talent there when it comes to basketball. What specifically are you looking forward to? Do you think you can snatch some players there to come to play at UJ?
Snatching players. Of course, if players are interested in coming and joining us and helping us move forward, we will look into it. But the key thing for us really is to be competitive and try to get into those last two spots so we can go to the international world championships. Yeah, that's really key for us.
So this is the 3-on-3 basketball, by the way. Let's talk the USA games. You and I spoke about this a little bit. It was a good thing that we met before then so that we can speak about these things on camera. So the schedule between the FASU 3x3 or 3-on-3, not 3x3, and the USA games that are scheduled to take place in Durban in the first week of July this year. There's literally 1 week in between. And I want to talk about the time that this competition, the duration, they are so close together. And I saw this last year during the December USAs as well. They started with it was literally like the whole week of basketball. We started with the 5-on-5. And the very same players that played in the 5-on-5 played in the 3-on-3. And I could see that those players were finished when they got into the 3-on-3. And that also gives you a lot of injuries there. I've seen with what happened at Vets. What do you think is the right time in between these tournaments that would allow athletes to train well, to recover well, and then to be more competitive? Is a week enough, or how should they be organized?
Sure.
6 weeks. 6 weeks difference. Because we were in the same predicament in 2016 when we won the FASUs. Because the turnaround was against, I think, 9 days. And the 4 players, which is our top players, were exhausted, and 2 of them got injured in the first rounds of games. So it puts a lot of strain on players. And I hope, again, this is where I talk about administrative issues. They're athletes. They might look superhuman, but at the end of the day, they're human. Physically, it's not possible to do that. But we're still expecting players to have that quick turnaround.
To play in the 5-on-5 and 3-on-3 in the same week. Because a game of basketball is very intense. It's not...
3x3 is even worse. 3x3 is worse. It might be 10-minute time, but that's 4 players.
There's literally no time to rest. It's not like football where you can kick the ball to the front and then relax because your players are chasing it.
Your sports scientists will probably come in here and tell you this is a scientific approach to prioritization and how you play and manage. But that's why Coach Mandla doesn't speak a lot about it, but their management of the players in the program to try and implement certain things to avoid a 6-week break when we do have these intense, close-knit tournaments is fantastic.
Now, let's bring it down to UJ.
You must boast yourself a little, Coach.
How do you recruit players for the UJ team in briefly, very briefly?
I'll leave that to Coach Tuso.
Coach Tuso? You seem to be the man for
this guy. Look, it comes back to what are we looking for. So we have certain types of players we're looking for. The first player we are not looking for is the superstar in that team. Those are the players we avoid. because once you are the best, we actually went through this before you came. We went through. We started with the superstars, only to find that most superstars in our basketball, not outside SA, because in SA, remember, we do not have qualified coaches at the lower levels that can do what we can do at the higher levels, which is part of the reasons why I actually went down to try and build our own players so that we get the players we want. So we avoid the superstars because they are spoon-fed. They get given the ball at high school because they are the best, and they say, go win the game for me. So that means they coach themselves, even though they have a coach. So we struggled with that a lot. And
what is it, the drama or?
The drama. It's like they are entitled because they were the best in their team, and their coach believed that they are the team. Yeah, exactly. So it's that mentality. So we go for that guy that was passing him the ball. Because he wants to get better. So he ends up being better than him. So when I go recruit, I literally look at who's working the hardest, who's trying to get the team together. I'm not looking at who's scoring the most. We literally take people that nobody knows. And then when we win, they're like, how are you winning with these players? They couldn't play in high school. Yes, they couldn't play because you were not playing them. You're not trying to make them better.
When is the right time or the right season for you to recruit players?
It's not a time, it's not a season issue, because what we've done, we went all the way back, because she spoke about the development. We have players at 14 years old right now that I'm developing for the next 6 years to come to UJ. So that's how low we went. We went all the way down to under 14. So we've got 14-year-olds right now playing for the UJ team. Some of them even play with some of the second team players just to get them ready and balance their level out.
Let me give you this.
And, so that's
these are two different balls, eh? Coach, there you go. Can you please describe to our viewers and some of us that may not be familiar with basketball that much? These balls are used for basketball, but they're used for two different games of basketball. That one, Coach Tuso, can you explain that one? And then Coach Mandla can explain the other one.
All right. I know a lot of people will be like, but I always see a different ball on TV. So Molten is used for mostly European leagues. FIBA, anything FIBA, it's a Molten. Because your private leagues have their own balls. Like NBA used to use Spalding, now they've moved to this new ball, Fila. No, there's a new one that Ball is using, Wilson. They've moved to a Wilson ball like this, but it's a Wilson.
What's the difference? What's the difference between this and that in terms? I see the feel and the shapes are not.
That one is
they are all.
Round.
What do you call it? I said to my daughter, my daughter drew something on paper. Actually, she had something. You know, bow stick, ne? She says, "Daddy, what shape is this?" I said, "It's round." He said, "No, it's not round. It's a sphere." Anyway. And then I said to her, "So what?" He says, "A round is flat." And then a sphere is like a ball, like that. So this one I see it's a bit slippery.
Well, not.
And
slippery.
That one is not that slippery, but that one when you feel it, it's more rubbery outside.
I'll give you the difference before he explains why the roughness. This one is a size 6. It's for women.
Okay.
It's smaller and lighter. This is a size 7. You see, not the same size. So the men play with a bigger ball. The women play with a smaller ball. Now come 3x.
So we've been talking about gender equality.
Yes,
why are these balls different?
Anyway, now this one, before he answers, now this one is a combination of these two. That's why it's only one ball for 3x3, not two. So it's a combination. He'll explain the combination. So this one is both of these together. In one ball. I'll explain that just now.
This is an indoor ball.
The women didn't always play with a size 6. They were playing with a size 7 as well. But they realized that it was too heavy for
certain girls,
for women, especially the development phase. So you ended up, it deforms the shooting form because they had to basically push it
so they
and
couldn't
throw
get
it away
as far
because it was too heavy. So that's the reason behind making it smaller and lighter as well. So that the form will look exactly uniformly in a man and women. So the women now can shoot as the guys used to shoot.
I'm not gonna go into the gender equality issue. Politics aside.
Okay,
and this one, that one for
I'll
us.
take you.
This one is
That one.
This used to be, the Wilson one used to be in the pro ranks, 3x3 pro ranks. They also used the Molten, which didn't have the same groove. It was the same thing,
but with the colors.
but with a smaller. It's a size 6, but it weighs the same size as size 7. But it's smaller. It's a combination. That's what Coach Tuso said. But this is better for handling, but it is difficult. You have to still work on it. But in terms of shooting, it's better because of all of these grooves, the lines and all of the things. Yeah. So to catch it, to shoot, is way better. That's why the shooting, you see players at the 3x3 seem to shoot the ball better, because I think it's how the ball is designed as well. And it's designed this way because as well,
I see it's got more.
Yeah, it has a lot
bigger
of
lines and smaller lines.
Yeah,
and then the outside it feels a little bit rubbery.
Exactly.
So you can actually, it can grip better onto the hands.
Because when we played in 2016, we were still using the Molten. It was before this one was moved down to the level that we're in, the amateur level. And in China, it was very, very humid. So players who couldn't handle this ball properly because it was slipping and all. So you always have to dry your hands to handle it. And this one is way better. Even if you're sweating, the handle doesn't.
You can still.
You can still
it won't slip away from your hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Nice. And then we were talking about the history of basketball, you and I, Coach. Yeah. Where does basketball originate? I know basketball from America.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is the UJ shirt. Is this for the men's and the ladies?
Yeah, this is for the men's cut. That's a men's cut.
The ladies, that one.
The ladies?
At the back. Check the back. It's the ladies.
Can you turn it around?
One.
Yeah, this is a female.
The one that goes in, the ladies.
Yeah, this is a female cut.
Okay.
This is the male.
Yeah, all right. So this is the gear for the ladies, ne?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just showing the UJ branded stuff there. And then the other one is the men's. Just make sure that doesn't fall there. That one. You can see how biggish it is because the guys that wear these
worn by one of our premier players who's now graduated, Zet Mutongoza.
This is Zet. Yeah, I know. I see the number 12. Yeah, Zet Mutongoza. Yeah. A very talented fellow.
Very hard work.
So this is what. Can people buy this if they want to?
No, we don't.
I'll take online orders. Once I have 20.
Where can they buy them?
Once I have 20, we can sell fan base. We'll become the UJ.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Thank you. All right. Now we're gonna close the show.
So you're asking about the history.
Yeah.
Basketball was started by Dr. Naismith, which all the great players really want to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, Dr. Naismith Hall of Fame. So he was a Canadian professor based in the US. So he created basketball to be a winter sport. So that's when the American football, which gridiron, is in off season. So he wanted to use a sport to help the American football athletes to stay in shape during the off season. So that's how he started it. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Anything else, Susanna, that you would like to share?
Don't just
Before
okay, Kulini.
Yeah.
No, just thanks for having us and giving us a platform to speak about something we're all passionate about.
Yeah.
And we look forward to hosting all the African countries for FASU in 2 weeks' time. And then we're looking forward to traveling down to Durban to go take on some other local universities in the
USAs.
Yes, in the USAs.
Yeah. Tickets are for free, yeah? Entry
Yes,
is
yeah.
free.
FASU
So anyone that
entry.
wants to come, and it's a good thing because exams would have just ended.
Yes, and the fixtures will be on the 23rd and 24th.
Yes, Friday
and,
23rd,
and
Saturday
24th of
Yeah.
June.
So if you'd like to come through and watch some basketball, come through. Everything is for free there, except the food. Okay, so thank you very much if you've joined us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We will definitely have a part 2 of this basketball chat with Coach Tuso, Coach Mandla, and the manager, Elise Leroux. I thank these guys for making time and sharing what UJ basketball is about. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.